11:01 on. Perfect. Thank you, Ken. Got it. All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Eric Faster. I'm the Solutions Program Manager at Fuse Hub. And today, here to present to you about the Advanced Manufacturing Initiative brought to you by the New York MEP, or Manufacturing Extension Partnership. We've got a handful of speakers. We're going to run through the 4 programs that make up this initiative, and then we'll do some Q&A at the end. Just a little housekeeping. Please keep yourself muted. As I mentioned, we'll do the Q&A at the end, so you can put your questions in chat. This video is going to be recorded, and the slides will be made available afterwards. All right, Zach, let's jump right in. So for those who are not familiar with the New York MEP, or Manufacturing Extension Partnership, it's part of a national network. And this consists of 51 centers nationwide. Next slide, please. The MEP National Network was formed by NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technologies, back in the 1980s, with the intent of enhancing productivity and technology performance for U.S. manufacturers, specifically small and medium-sized manufacturers. And you can see here what an impact the program has had on manufacturing in the U.S. just last year alone, in terms of manufacturing interactions, sales dollars, cost savings, and jobs created. So some pretty impressive numbers there. Next slide, please. Now, within New York, small and medium-sized manufacturers, including startups up to 500 employee organizations, these are supported by 11 centers, a statewide center, Fuse Hub, and then 10 regional centers that correspond to the 10 economic regions. And you can find your region on the New York MEP website, on Fuse Hub website. You can ask any of our speakers today. We'll gladly help you out and get you connected there. Collectively, these 11 centers all have the same mission: to help manufacturers in New York. And last year alone, 7,000 jobs and over $1 billion in sales, cost savings, and investments were made possible by companies working with their New York MEP centers. And we accomplish this by helping companies in a number of different areas: consulting, technical services, training, mentoring, networking, and all across different product and company stages. So whether you're just starting out with a new product concept, or if you have a company that's been around for decades, the New York MEP centers are a great resource for assisting you with any technical or manufacturing-related challenges. And as I mentioned, if you need help finding out who your center is, please ask one of our speakers, put it in the chat. We'll make sure to get you connected. And also at the very end, I'll have websites on the final slide. We'll leave that up for Q&A, so you'll be able to get the links off of that as well. Okay, so let's jump right into the main focus of this event, the Advanced Manufacturing Initiative. This program was awarded by Empire State Development Division of Science, Technology, Innovation, also known as MyStar, in order to encourage New York-based small and medium-sized manufacturers to work with their New York MEP centers and solve challenges in 4 focus areas. Ultimately, those interactions are going to help drive growth and create economic impacts for those manufacturers. So the first focus area is cybersecurity. So looking at implementing measures to protect yourself from cyber attacks. Corey Albrecht from AIM, the Mohawk Valley Center, is going to discuss that. Next is advanced materials. So this would be like understanding the new regulations regarding the use of and disposal of certain materials, and how to address those challenges with more sustainable options. I'm going to talk about that later on in the presentation, with help from Mike Marvin, who is with NextCore, the Finger Lakes Regional Center. The third initiative looks at how to address vulnerabilities in your supply chain and keep your business running smoothly. John Lynch from TDO, the Central New York MEP Center, will talk about that. And then Industry 4.0 is looking at modernizing your operations by embracing new technologies, and that'll be brought to us by Amanda Jackson with AMT, the Southern Tier MEP Center. We're going to present these a little bit out of order than they're presented here, but before we kick it off, I just wanted to say a brief note that these are all statewide programs. Just because certain centers are presenting them does not mean that they're only open to that region. So you would still work through your regional center to get involved in the program, but they are open to companies statewide. All right, now we're going to dig into each of these in more detail, starting with supply chain. So at this time, I'll hand things over to Don Lynch with PDO.
Don was here and we just lost him. So I think maybe we should go out of order. Corey, are you ready to go?
Sure. Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, now we can hear you. Okay.
Okay, sorry, I got double muted, so my apologies. So good morning, everybody, and welcome. We're happy to have you with us. Thanks, Eric, for that introduction. And I'm here to talk about the process that we're going to use to help New York manufacturers strengthen their supply chains. Zach, next slide, please. And one more. So this is one of the 4 manufacturing initiatives that we'll be rolling out to you today. Zach, next slide. The supply chain assessment goals are to assist manufacturers to strengthen their supply chain management practices and ultimately to enhance the competitiveness of U.S. manufacturers. The funding from this comes from NIST, National Institute of Science and Technology, and that grant is in place to help strengthen the supply chains of U.S. manufacturers. And it'll be delivered through each state's manufacturing extension partnership centers. Next slide, please, Zach. The benefits that we're expecting for our manufacturers that participate in this is, number one, increased awareness of supply chain best practices to hopefully compare what you're doing to what is being done in some industries, and especially the best practices in some industries. Out of that, we hope to be able to work with our clients to establish a prioritized list of improvement opportunities. And those improvement opportunities should result in reduced costs. Materials, logistics, and inventory costs should all be impacted by adopting some of these best practices, and ultimately improving the ability to maintain and gain new revenue. In other words, improving competitiveness through shorter lead times, higher on-time delivery, and improved quality performance. Zach, next slide, please. The program in New York will be a web-based supply chain assessment, and we're going to be looking at 9 specific functional categories and what practices each participant is using in each of those categories. When that assessment is done, we're going to develop a confidential manufacturer-specific set of recommendations that will be shared individually with that participant company. And that will be based on the results that are entered during the survey, as well as the impact that each category is going to have or is having on that business's profitability and ability to generate and maintain revenue. And then after we're through that, we will be able to provide some assistance under the grant funding to help assist companies to get started with implementing some of the best practices that may have the most impact for their company. Zach, next slide. The categories that we're going to be looking at are supplier pricing controls, collaborative planning with sales and operations within your organization, supply chain continuous improvement activities, communication with suppliers, supply chain controls, primarily in the areas of engineering changes, transportation and logistics, inventory management, and inventory control once that inventory enters into your facilities, and then finally, supply continuity planning. Zach, next slide. The timeline for a rollout during Q4 of this year, so for the next few weeks of December, we're going to be launching the assessment tools with each of our New York State MEP centers. We're on track to have that completed very shortly. And then starting in Q1, over the remainder of the grant funding period, which is through Q2 of 2025, we plan to conduct those assessments with New York State manufacturers, generate those manufacturer-specific recommendations, to review the results with the manufacturers, and then to select to help manufacturers select and implement the most impactful best practices. Okay, and then my final slide here are your contacts for each regional MEP in the state. This will be in the slides when we get done, so you can look this up afterwards, but each MEP center has a contact person that we'll be working with to roll out the program. And of course, my contact information is on the bottom as well. Okay, at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Corey Albrecht from AIM, who will talk about cybersecurity.
Okay, great. Thanks, Don. Good morning, everyone. My name is Corey Albrecht. I'm with Mohawk Valley Community College here in the Mohawk Valley. I'm the director of our MEP Center here, which is AIM, and that stands for the Advanced Institute for Manufacturing. And over the next several minutes here, I'll talk about our New York State Cybersecurity Manufacturing Initiative Grant Program. Next slide. Okay, so Eric opened up by talking about the advanced manufacturing initiatives and the 4 pillars of the program that we have. And the first pillar that you can see there is the cybersecurity, and that's what I will be speaking about here. Paraphrasing what that says for everyone here, the New York State Cybersecurity Manufacturing Initiative Grant Program is designed to help the manufacturers address common cybersecurity needs in a practical way through in-person cybersecurity assessments. Next slide. The details of the grant program. So we launched this program just a couple months ago, October 1st, so in the third quarter of 2023. This is a 2-year service program, so it runs till the end of 2025. And in the following slides, you will see that we are awarding funds for the assessments, which is under a phase 1, and then implementation of the services for your remediation, which will be under a phase 2 funding. And I will also talk about the 4 in-person cybersecurity live events that we will have, and they'll be for 2024 and also into 2025 as well. Next slide. Eligibility. Okay, so the first thing is you have to be a manufacturer in the state of New York, and you would have a manufacturing NAICS code, which would be a 3-1, a 3-2, or a 3-3, followed by 4 additional digits, so it's a 6-digit code. If you have a hard time finding what your NAICS code is, if you reach out to your regional MEP center, we'll be more than happy to help you. So again, a New York State manufacturer, here at New York MEP, we assist those small to mid-sized manufacturers that would be 500 employees or fewer. And then in the past, this cybersecurity grant program was only for Department of Defense manufacturers. However, this time it is not only for DoD. So if you're not in that space, that is perfectly fine. So you could be in food manufacturing, metals fabricating, wood product, microelectronics manufacturing, whatever your industry would be. If you're a small to mid-sized manufacturer in the state of New York, you are eligible to apply for this grant. And then finally, we need a completed online application, and at the end of this presentation, you will see the link for that. There is a field in the application which will ask what you plan on doing with your project and what you plan on doing with the funds. If you could please just put in a couple, 3 or 4 sentences around the assessment, that's what we're awarding right now. Next slide. Okay, so we'll get right into the assessment. So the first phase in the first period of the award are for the assessments. These assessments are performed by us here at the Advanced Institute for Manufacturing and also with our MTech partners, which is a Hudson Valley Regional MEP. They are partners of ours in this program as well. Together, we've been performing cybersecurity assessments in person for more than 300 companies for the last 7 years. All New York State manufacturers will be eligible, so all 10 regions of the state. There is no strict regional allocations. In the years past, we had numbers that had to have been met as far as how many companies in the Mohawk Valley, how many companies in Long Island. This is open for every manufacturer in all 10 regions of the state of New York. Next would be our tool that we're using. So we're using the NIST 800-171 guidelines. That is the tool that we have been using for 7 years, and this will allow you to meet the requirements from DFARS and also the forthcoming requirements for CMMC, which is the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. Following your assessment, you will go through a 90-day self-remediation period of time, and then our team will come back in on site at your location. The cost of the assessment under the phase 1 is $7,500, of which $6,000 will be provided through the grant program. So as a small manufacturer, the out-of-pocket is only $1,500. Next slide. And then phase 2. So you see a couple TBDs in here. The phase 2 is the implementation for the project, so your training or any advanced testing your organization may need. This will be based on funding availability. And as you can see on the timeline, this will be in the second year of the program, so it will not begin until October of 24 and then conclude at the end of 25. And again, this phase 2 implementation is for the funding for the implementation of your projects and for further advanced testing. You will need a prior assessment as a requirement for potential phase 2 funding. And now there's a number of ways which you could have a prior assessment. The first way is you could be a recipient of the grant program that we're speaking about. So you could be a recipient of the phase 1 with the assessment done by our teams. You can demonstrate that you as an organization, you went through a self-assessment on your own. Or number 3, you could have a detailed report provided to us by a third-party provider. Again, so a prior assessment would be required, and the funding is based on availability at this time. Next slide. And then we get to our 4 in-person events. As you can see, they begin this coming winter, 2024, Mohawk Valley a regional event. So it's going to be on February 13th. And then in the spring, we're going to be with our friends AMT down in the Southern Tier region. And then in the fall of next year, we'll be in the Finger Lakes. And then spring 2025, we will conclude our in-person events on Long Island. 3 key things that I feel like we all get out of the events. Number 1 is the general cybersecurity awareness, which is extremely important for all manufacturers. Number 2 would be an opportunity for education. And then finally, these events make for a fantastic regional network opportunity. And then how to apply. As you can see, we have a web-based application. Fill out the application if you can, please. If you're interested in the phase 1 assessment, applications are reviewed approximately every 2 weeks. We have a review committee available. And then the awardees, if you're awarded, you're sent an award letter promptly and then contacted by your implementation team to schedule the scope of work call, and then finally your on-site assessment. Because this grant program runs over 2 years in length, we're looking at awarding approximately 15 small to mid-sized manufacturers per quarter. Next slide. And then finally, any questions, any further information, you can reach out to myself, Corey Albrecht with Mohawk Valley Community College. My information is there.
Okay, it's clear. Sounds good. Thank you.
And then Paul Laporte, he's our cybersecurity coordinator here at the Advanced Institute for Manufacturing. He's also on this call as well. With that, I thank you for your time and attention. I'll pass over to Amanda with AMT.
Corey. My name's Amanda Jackson. I'm from AMT, which is in the southern tier of New York State. So we're the MEP center that covers that space. And just like the other presenters, I'm covering one of the pillars of the Advanced Manufacturing Initiative. So ours that AMT is managing is Industry 4.0. So you might be wondering, what is Industry 4.0, or you might have seen that term or even I 4.0 around. There's a lot of different definitions, but the definition we like most is that it's the use of advanced technologies. So these are things like automation, data exchange, and artificial intelligence to create smarter, more connected, and efficient industrial processes. Does this apply to you? Well, we know manufacturers are facing tons of challenges: workforce shortages, supply chain disruptions, global competition, more struggles than we've ever seen in some cases, and new technology can be a way to really help you solve these challenges. So just to level set for all of us, what are some examples of technology? I thought I'd show a few. The first I'll cover is collaborative robots. So sometimes these are called cobots, and they're robots that are designed specifically to work alongside humans. They really do a great job of handling repetitive tasks. On the right-hand side, you can see an example even of a cobot loading and unloading a machining center. And there are all different brands. So I'm showing a couple of different brands down at the bottom, but there's more than half a dozen different providers of cobots that have all different approaches, but ultimately that technology helps folks have their employees focus on more complex and complicated tasks within their facility. Another example of technology is sensor integration. So this is adding sensors to equipment or machinery that you have in your plant. It really helps you get real-time data, things about performance metrics for your operations. It can track temperature usage. It can count for you. The example off to the right is an image sensor that will take a photo, and it's actually doing a quality inspection for your operation. And the great thing about these sensors is they can be connected in a dashboard or online and help you see what's going on in your facility remotely. So if it's an off-hour time frame, like a weekend or a night shift, or if you're just not in the plant, you can see how things are running. You can even get real-time alarms to your cell phone or smart device and make sure that your operations are continuously running smooth. Or if you need to resolve it, you can go in and do that. The third technology example I'll give is really almost a mini category, so software, and probably there's as much manufacturing software out there as there are apps for your cell phone. Just a couple of examples, there's software to manage inventory, so this can help you integrate your inventory data with production schedules and kind of maximize how you're handling raw materials in stock.
He doesn't do that.
You can also use software to analyze customer order trends and get a feel for what your customer is interested in and how often or frequently they're going to be ordering. And you can even help your folks on the shop floor with different software packages, either create a stable mixed pallet when you've got a bunch of different size boxes, or even plan for a container shipment. Those are just a couple of examples. I mean, honestly, the opportunities with technology are endless. I didn't even cover categories like augmented and virtual reality, digital twin and simulations, data analytics, 3D printing. If it is any sort of technology, it applies for this portion of the initiative. So how can we help? The Industry 4.0 pillar of the Advanced Manufacturing Initiative has several different approaches to helping manufacturers. The first is mini grants, and we'll talk about direct technical assistance and how you can apply. The next is a technical exchange, a tech exchange, and that's a working group for manufacturers to talk about best practices and learn from one another. And we'll talk about webinars that are provided as part of this as well. So with the grants, there is a mini grant that's offered as part of this, and it can include any technical project that you have and anything from the start of the project to the finish. So if you're just strategizing and you're kind of at the start, or you're all the way up to implementation and training, it'll cover any part of a technology project that you have. To apply, just like some of the other portions of the grant, you have to be a New York State manufacturer and have less than 500 employees total in New York State. We're going to begin accepting applications January 1st, and this program runs for 2 years, but we're looking to award the grants within the next year and a half so that we can make sure we get all the projects finished up. In terms of grant awards, it's up to $20,000 per application, and there is a matching requirement for manufacturers of 50%, but a portion of that can be the work you put in for the project in kind. And so when you apply, that's something that'll be apparent. Hardware costs are not eligible under the grant, but they can be used as part of the match. So that might have piqued your interest, or you might have already been thinking about different technology options. If you're stuck at any point, you can contact your local MEP center. Our whole approach is to help you move forward from whatever starting point you're at. So whether you've implemented a lot of technology in your plant already, or you're just starting out, your regional MEP center can really help. Another opportunity as part of this initiative will be to review other case studies. Everybody who is awarded a grant will either have a write-up or a video to describe how that project went. And the idea is really that we'll cover the return on investment, both before, what the situation was, and also after, and all the wins from that. And we're looking to highlight practical and cost-effective solutions so that across New York State, we can benchmark one another. There'll also be webinars and working groups, And these will really cover key technology topics so that we can talk about best practices. If you're looking for more information, just like the other portions of the initiative, you can go to the New York MEP website. From there, if you click on the Industry 4.0 section, it'll take you to the landing page, which is hosted on AMT's website. And from there, you can request more information for whatever portion of the initiative you're interested in. Once you do so, it will immediately email your regional MEP center and we'll reach back out to you and connect and help you further. And as always, if you have any questions, you can reach out directly to AMT, to me, Amanda Jackson. Up next is Eric to talk about advanced materials.
All right, thanks, Amanda. Kim, is that audio better? Thumbs up. Okay, good. Apparently I was having some issues cutting out earlier. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the materials portion of this project. I should have mentioned earlier on that the image we keep showing on the right with those 4 pillars, that's directly from the website, just to kind of tie it all together. And so if you go to the New York MEP website right now, there's actually a drop-down tab for this advanced manufacturing initiative. So that's where all this information will be. Again, we'll have a link at the end, so you don't have to worry about copying that down yet. All right, the fourth and final focus area for the AMI is materials. And the goal here is to help manufacturers learn about new and more sustainable material options that can be used in their product components and in their manufacturing processes, and to offer services and funding to help implement those projects to help with any type of manufacturing or materials related challenges. The reason for this is, the regulations out there are constantly changing. They're becoming more strict. And as a result, there's a lot of pressure put on manufacturers to be more eco-friendly. For the manufacturers tuning in today, a lot of you may not even know what the latest compliance requirements are, and that can have major financial implications on your business. So, a lot of times, even if companies do know what they need to do, it's tough to figure out, what alternatives are out there, where do I find them? How do I go about integrating them into my existing processes? So these are just some of the types of challenges that this program is looking to address. All the information I'm presenting, again, is found on the New York MEP website. It's New York spelled out, MEP.org. The homepage for the materials initiative is what you see on the right there. That gives a general overview of the program. There's links to related events and the accelerated program, which Mike is going to talk about in a little bit. There's links to the funding guidelines, what companies are eligible, what are their matching requirements, what are some of the costs that can be covered by the grant. And then there's a form to submit an inquiry if you're interested in that funding to find out more. I wanted to quickly describe those 3 elements that I just discussed in a little more detail. So there's a training aspect to this program. There's going to be a number of events hosted by CCMR, which is the Cornell Center for Materials Research. There's an accelerator, which is a cohort-based program that Mike's going to talk about in detail in just a minute or two here. And then there's mini grants of up to $20,000. Now, all of these 3 elements are independent, right? So you can combine them all and make for a really impactful project, but you don't have to. You can, in other words, if it's not a requirement that you participate in the training or the accelerator to be able to apply for the funding. Alternatively, you can participate in the webinars and the cohort, even if you're not interested in the grant. So before I turn it over to Mike, just quickly want to do a little bit more about the grants. So, and this is similar to what Amanda presented, but there's some basic requirements, right? You have to be a New York manufacturer. We keep saying that. We're the manufacturing extension partnership. So of course we want you to be a manufacturer. Small to medium sized business. So again, this is anything from a single person startup up to 500 employees, valid NAICS code. And again, if you don't have that, reach out to any one of us. We'll be glad to help you find it. Now, in order to apply, the startup or the manufacturer acts as the industry partner. You'll see that terminology in our content. So there's the New York MEP Center and the industry partner. Again, startup or a manufacturer can be the industry partner. But the application actually comes from the New York MEP Center that you're working with. Okay, just to clarify. We're offering 10 grant total, up to $20,000 each. That's the grant amount. And then there's a matching requirement. To help illustrate this better, there's an example on the right there. So let's say you identify a project that's going to cost $40,000, right? That'd be kind of the best case scenario.
Hey, Zach, can you advance the slide? I think it might.
Oh, yep, thank you. So 20,000 of that would come from the grant. The other 20,000 would come from the industry partner. And that can be a combination of cash and in-kind services. There's some limitations, like Amanda was mentioning, equipment can be part of the in-kind cash contribution, but I'm not going to go into all that detail. Definitely, if you're interested, the guidelines online spell it out very clearly. And if there's questions, feel free to reach out. So to give an example of what might make a good project, sorry, Zach, back one. This is my last one. So what might make a good project? So let's say you engage in a consulting project with your regional MEP center to help understand what are the regulations affecting your industry and your company. Maybe you need help identifying sustainable materials that could replace current materials in your production or in your product, and then testing and selecting a suitable candidate. That's a great project. Another example would be you reach out to seek help developing a new prototype. So there might be some engineering and design work to accommodate for a new material that has different properties than what you're currently using. That can impact how the product performs. Or maybe you're able to use less of a material and still maintain the product quality and strength, right? So these are, again, another option that might be worth looking at to partner with your MEP. Last example I had was, looking at operational requirements, so maybe lean analysis or different process requirements and refining the operations or retooling in order to handle a new type of material in your production. So anything like that, but any other product or project that has a materials related aspect to it would be worth taking a look. So with that, I'm now going to turn it over to Mike Marvin with NextCore to talk about the accelerator program in more detail. And Mike, take it away.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good. My first slide there, Zach. Thank you. Yep, so I'm Mike Marvin. I'm the program manager for the Manufacturing Accelerator here at NextCore, who is the Finger Lakes region MEP. And our addition to this project, as Eric mentioned, is to run our Manufacturing Accelerator, which is a virtual curriculum with individualized mentoring and support. And it's designed specifically to help new product teams kind of stay focused on their path to be able to be working on the right things at the right time. So they're very effective and efficient with their resources. Next slide, please. So for this program, RIT, NextCore Innovation Works in Pittsburgh, and for this particular run through CCMR, will be primarily coming up with the material. The RIT and NextCore combination work a lot with manufacturing readiness levels, which is from the Department of Defense. There's also a body of knowledge called Build for Scale curriculum, which we take from, and that was from the Department of Energy. And then kind of foundational to our program is a textbook called Product Realization, Going from 1 to a Million by Anna Thornton, which has really excellent examples and content for anybody who's trying to bring a new product or revise a product and get it back into the market. So to apply for this, we run you through a tool that we've created called the product stage assessment. And the product stage assessment gives us a little bit of an idea of what everyone's current state of development is. So it'll tell us about the TRL level. It'll tell us a little bit about where you are in terms of your prototyping levels. It's about a 15-minute assessment, and you submit that as part of the application process. Next slide. There we go. So after your application, we take you through a 10-week curriculum. Like I said, most of that is online. We do have 2 sessions, the Design for Sustainability in number 6 and Advanced Materials at number 7, which are actually at RIT in Cornell. And the people who come to that will also get a tour of the facilities there. Next slide. So early on in the accelerator, we are getting your documentation ready. So we're looking at product requirement documents, PRDs, bill of materials, technical drawings, quality plans, bills of process, all of the kind of documentation that you need to advance your product and reduce your risk. One of those, the first one you'll encounter will be, oops, nope, you're good. Yep, the PRD Builder is a tool that NextCore and RIT developed together. Product requirement documents seem to be a stumbling block for a lot of people to get good, clean product requirement documents up front that aren't in somebody's head, that are actually down on paper. And a lot of the templates that we saw were just basically giant spreadsheets. So we tried to make something with a little better user interface. So we created our own PRD Builder, and that will be something that would kick off in the very first week. You'd start building your product requirement document, and it can go throughout. We don't expect it to be done necessarily in the first week. Next slide. Then as we progress, get later in the program, we're going to start looking at MRL assessments in a bigger way to kind of pinpoint where the team needs to be spending their time and resources, and also prepare especially new team startups for their discussions with contract manufacturers and suppliers, because you want those to start out on a good footing, and sometimes there are pitfalls going into those meetings that we help you with. Next slide. So the manufacturing readiness level is a big part of the program, and the manufacturing readiness level is like there's 10 levels, and they're in a phase gate, meaning that in order to move through your manufacturing process, you want to complete each level before you move on to the next. So if we do an assessment and you're at MRL 3, you want to finish off all of your MRL 3 stuff before you move on to MRL 4, and so on. Next slide. I think that was, yes, okay. So there's 2 MRL tools. There's some involved in that first product stage assessment that I mentioned, which is just a quick 15-minute survey. But then towards the end of the program, we do a deep dive into the MRL assessment. So there's 10 levels. There's 9 threads for those levels. So things like cost and production readiness and things like that. And there's 22 sub-threads that come through there. So it's a pretty daunting amount of information that we go through. But we run you through a detailed MRL assessment to kind of figure out where you are and where you need to go next. Next slide. And the purpose of that really is to get you to a roadmap. Okay, so and you can see in red on the top here, hopefully, that what you're doing is identifying your MRL level for the different sub-threads that you'd like to improve. So in terms of projects, what we're doing is saying, okay, we may be at a MRL level 2 for sub-thread A1 and A2, and we want to improve those. And then what does the project look like that's going to improve those? And so that's the whole idea of taking the MRL assessment, put it into a roadmap, and then you can kind of have multiple projects defined so that you're focusing your financial and time resources towards mitigating risk and moving the product forward. And just kind of to connect it to what Eric was saying, like if at this point in time, it would be when you would be looking at, okay, so we've defined these projects that we'd like to move forward with. There may be some materials related stuff in your projects that would be something you could apply for funding for, right? So, so that's, you know, also part of the roadmap is figuring out what is it that you need to get done and what are some of the resources. And part of the manufacturing accelerator will also be to introduce you to other possible funding source depending on what you're specifically working on. Next slide. And then finally, towards the end, we're doing a lot more work with groups. You know, you'd be working with a mentor and possibly technical mentors on getting ready to talk to your suppliers and contract manufacturers and have very good startup meetings with them, because sometimes the key to your success will be how well you work with your contract manufacturer. So we like to remind people that you think about a contract manufacturer, if somebody who's manufacturing for you, they're an investor, really. They're a prospective investor in your process. So to keep that in mind as you're preparing for them, making sure that your documentation's in good order before you actually reach out to them, you have drawings that are appropriate, and those kind of things. Next slide. And today we are opening the applications for this. It will begin in February 14th, and run pretty much every week. There are some skip weeks in there depending on different scheduling issues, but it runs from February 14th through May 8th, I believe, the schedule. So this is the information on, you can, you know, get to the site from that QR code, and there's the website. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to me at that email address. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Mike. Okay, so for the materials portion of the program, next steps would be definitely check out the New York MEP website. As Mike said, you can apply for the accelerator now. There's going to be 2 different cohorts. The first one is open now for applications and starts in February. The mini grants, similar to the Industry 4.0 one, those will be opening up January 1st. But there's also a link on the website where you can submit an inquiry to start the process of talking to your MEP center and maybe start developing a project concept now. And then finally, you can sign up for the first webinar, which is going to be on January 24th. And that's going to provide introduction to advanced materials and some application and benefits. So if you're not quite sure what you know, how materials might help your business, that would definitely be worth looking into. And again, that's a screenshot of the web page on the right there, just so it looks familiar when you get there. Okay, final slide. That wraps things up for the overview of the Advanced Manufacturing Initiative and the 4 different focus areas. Again, I keep saying it, but for more information on any of the programs, it's newyorkmep.org, or contact your regional center if you know who they are, or you can contact the center administering the program you're interested in, or you can reach out to FuseHub and we'll help direct you. Websites for all the different centers are listed there. Contact info for all the speakers are listed there, except for yours, Mike. I forgot to put it on there. But please, if you do have a question, reach out to us or put it in the chat. We do have some time left today. And thank you, Zach, for running the slides, and thank you, Kim, for monitoring the chat.
Great. So we do have a few questions that came in. Some of them were actually answered within the chat. For Corey, for cybersecurity phase 2, can you explain what the funding amount is or looks like?
Sure. For the phase 2, the initial thought was $5,000 or less per applicant, and unfortunately that could not be used for any equipment purchases. So it would be for implementation and remediation, potentially even using a third-party provider or your local MEP center for that service. Again, it's a year off here, and I really want to see how much funding is available and left at that time. But the initial thought again would be $5,000 or less per customer.
Thanks. And then for the NIST codes that are eligible for cybersecurity, the cybersecurity application, is that listed somewhere?
It's not on the web page right now. It's not on our landing page. However, I would be happy to put together a listing of all of the eligible codes, and I can directly send them to the individual asking that question.
Okay, great. For Amanda, is the MEP providing the Industry 4.0 technical assistance, or is the grant provided to fund the company to work with an organization that can provide them with the tech assistance?
So the way that it should start, that I'd recommend you start as a manufacturer, is reaching out to your local MEP, and they'll be the ones that can help you apply for the grant funding. In terms of the funding part of it, it can be that the MEP is providing you services or supporting you, or it can be a third party that's utilized for that. But either way, the grant application process will be working through the MEP center that's for your region.
Thank you. Mike, for the accelerator, we've got a couple of questions. One is, you said that it was a 10-week class. Are those all-day classes?
No, I'm sorry, that's a good question. Those are on Wednesdays from 1 to 3. And they also, there's a learning management system available. So we know that startups sometimes can't make it. And so there's always a video link for each class after the class is run so that people can pick it up. So they're usually designed to be 90 minutes plus and some time at the end for questions.
Great. And most of it is delivered virtually for anyone across New York State.
Yep, all of the curriculum pieces are delivered virtually. There are some on-site opportunities as part of it, as I mentioned, at RIT and at the Cornell Center. And also there'll be some opportunities to do some manufacturing tours as part of it as well, and get the dates out. If you sign up for the cohort, they're not necessarily mandatory, but they're an opportunity for the people who are participating. Mm-hmm. So there isn't an expectation necessarily that you travel anywhere. Like, you can do the entire program virtually. You'll just may not participate in every aspect of it.
Great. There's one last question that I see here. Is New York MEP the same as Fuse Hub? If not, what is the difference? So yes, it does seem confusing, but New York MEP is not the same as Fuse Hub. New York MEP consists of 11 centers, 10 regional centers, and one statewide center, which is Fuse Hub. So we're all partners, and we all individually make up New York MEP. And if you go to newyorkmep.org, you'll see all the regional centers, a description of what New York MEP is, and a lot more materials to help you. All right, I think that's it, Eric.
All right, well, thanks for that, Kim. Thanks everyone for attending. And as Kim mentioned, tomorrow an email will go out with the link for the recording and the slideshow. In the meantime, if there are questions, feel free to reach out to any of the presenters or to the New York MEP site in general. Thank you very much.